Dr Cathy Foley, welcome to 7:30.
Hi Laura, great to see you again.
We've just heard in our last story that 2024 was the hottest year on record. Could I first get your snapshot assessment of whether the science of climate change has changed much during your term as Chief Scientist, and also whether global policy developments in that time have left you more pessimistic or optimistic?
Well, it's a really good question to ask because in many ways what we're seeing is the science of climate and climate change has really been demonstrating that predictions are turning into reality. So I think we could say that the climate science is correct. Of course, there's boundary layers or boundary conditions which are improving all the time, better computational capabilities. Even with the onset of quantum computers, we're going to be able to do better climate modelling in the future. But what we're seeing is climate science is absolutely living up to what the predictions were, unfortunately. I think everyone can see that what's happening in LA is an example of extreme climate conditions happening on a regular basis.
Well, in the political debate now about energy, climate change seems to be taking a bit of a back seat to the issues of cost and system reliability. If scientists were running the energy debate in Australia right now and making climate change the first priority, what would they be seeking to do in the short and long term on energy policy?
Well, I think scientists like to be evidence-based, and so I think what we need to be is agnostic about the technology, but look at the data that says what can we do now, because we need to transition our energy grid away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible, and at a rate that's needed so that we can reduce the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere as quickly as possible. So doing what is available now is the first thing, and then that gets us to a point where we can look down the road at new technologies that are coming through all the time. I know there's been debates about nuclear energy, but there's also new technologies that are under development, from whether it's fusion, not to mention other renewable things such as solar panels that work at night, which is not solar panels, but they're actually using a different wavelength. If we don't do those transitions, we're going to end up to a point where we can't get insurance for our properties or for our businesses, that we are going to have huge health impacts. We're going to see catastrophic and spiralling impacts where one thing will lead to another, so more pandemics, for example. And that will happen because of the build-up of all these different things that climate change will create.
Does nuclear energy have more downsides to other forms of energy, such as nuclear waste?
There's a couple of issues. One is that the costs seem to go up, so there's quite often 25% or more increase in costs for them to be built. Also very long time delays, in some cases up to a decade delays. And then the other one is the workforce, and that's probably an even bigger one, because since Fukushima reactor issues after the tsunami in Japan, there has been a real pullback globally on nuclear energy as a pathway forward, and as a consequence there wasn't that career pathway for many people. And internationally there are not enough nuclear physicists or nuclear engineers who are available to actually implement, build, make things happen. Also looking at what makes sense for Australia, they need a lot of water to be able to operate, and there are new technologies coming on board, so it may be best to wait and see if any of these new technologies, such as small modular nuclear reactors, if they actually do become a reality, they might be something to pause and see what happens with them.
You've been a big proponent of a national quantum strategy, but FOI documents reported in the Financial Review show it took you a long time to be convinced about the $1 billion Sci quantum deal that the federal and state governments have signed up. What did you need to be persuaded about?
There was a lot of interest to see how we can really grow our quantum industry, because it's an extraordinary opportunity. When we've tried to have a new technology industry in Australia, we've failed miserably. Think about solar panels were invented here, Wi-Fi is invented here. Quantum is a really big opportunity. We've got the critical mass, but can we make it into an industry? And we just needed to get a big company coming in, and this was a pathway to do it. When we were actually able to see the work that they're doing, which of course they keep secret, it was mind-blowingly excellent. So that was why I was able to change my mind on that.
Ed Husick praised you last month for a number of things, including your work on pandemic preparedness. Will we be better prepared for a future pandemic?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit in late 2019, early 2020, what we saw was a country which was very much depending on things like PPE being brought in from overseas, and we didn't really have supply chain sovereignty. So I think in that time what we've seen is an uplift in, well, first of all, as you said, PPE, like we make masks here, we didn't before. We have the ability to make ventilators and all the sorts of things there, but also, more importantly, is successive governments have invested in the ability for us to manufacture vaccines here, and that's something that's really important. Australia's got extraordinarily high quality health and medical research here, and what this has done is this investment is also allowing a pathway to see better translation of that research into commercial health products here. So I think we've come a long way as a country over the pandemic. There's been a lot of government investment to really, such as Moderna down in Clayton in Victoria being set up. We've got New South Wales Government setting up mRNA hub here at Westmead. Macquarie University's also invested in that. And we've also seen I think better coordination as well, and there's of course the Australian Centre for Disease Preparedness that CSIRO looks after, which means that we can do the animal testing. There's the ability to take drugs through from end to end, which we didn't have before. So we've come a long way since the pandemic first hit. What is going to happen next, I think, is with the government's Centre for Disease Control coming up and getting into place. I think when that's in place, I'll be more confident, because that's going to make sure we've got that really big oversight across all the different components. I think we've also got probably better understanding of supply chains and what to do and what relationships to have, so that if something does go pear-shaped, we're able to draw on them and our relationships to make sure we're not short of things in the future.
Dr Cathy Foley, thanks for talking to us tonight, and have great fun on your next adventures.
Thanks so much, Laura.